Hey folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt and this is Crypto Heartbeat. What's going on, folks? It's 12:31 Central Texas time and we are back. We're back with some expectation reality gap trap. You know what? You can always rely on me to bring you the voice of reason when it comes to the craziness that's out there in crypto. That's really what we're all about here at Crypto Heartbeat, is really to talk about the things that really matter. And one of the most important things that you could possibly ever have is the proper perspective. And so many people are losing their beep. And you know what? It's okay. Let's understand the difference between the expectation and reality. What is the gap? Mind the gap. Welcome back to the Pulse. We got some great people in the chat. Looking forward to saying hello to you. And then we're going to get into some content today. But folks, it's this is it, man. What does capitulation look like? What is max pain? You know, we had some expectations, didn't you? Oh, you weren't supposed to have any expectations. Well, what's the reality of that situation? Let's talk about that. And let's also understand how we recalibrate ourselves to the very framework of how all this stuff is built. Because, folks, these things work in cycles. You know they do. So have the proper perspective and understand what actually creates the value. It's not shooting people in the head in the foxhole. I assure you of that. Taryn, what's going on? You're number one. Blessed day all. Yup, K, what's going on? Sam Kemp is here as usual. Thanks for being here, Sam Kemp. If you got the Twitters, please share this out. Like, subscribe, those things. Magnus, what's going on? Tin Top, what's up, Hexicans? Godfather J6 is always in the house. You know, that's the key here. Consistency, regardless of whether you're in plenty or in want, no matter the circumstances. You're showing up, chopping wood. That's what I told Ray. That's what I told Ray today. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm chopping wood today. I'm going to chop some wood with Mr. Rock Jockey. What's going on? Good day, E-Hexers and P-Hexers. Yeah, the battle lines have been drawn. Fiber Finance CEO, what's going on? Hey. Here we are again. Tex Hex, what's going on? Looking forward to an exciting June. A lot happening in June. But this should be really interesting as we go into the summertime. And then ultimately we go to the Bitcoin halvening. I think that's an interesting time. You know, debt deals on the horizon. What are we going to see? Are they going to turn the money printers back on? That's a big question that people have. But folks, today we're talking about the expectation reality gap. And this is something that, you know, obviously if you've been around a couple cycles of the sun, you know that this exists, right? You have expectations. You have a vision for what your life's going to be like that. My son's like, Dad, do you think I can go into the NBA? Son, you can do anything you set your mind to, right? You want to destroy someone's dreams, right? At least I don't. But, you know, you think about what are the things that you dreamed about when you were a kid? What was the vision you had for your life? And of course, you know, life stepped in, right? You have these kind of expectations. What are things going to be like? And of course, a lot of times driven by naive faith. I certainly find myself in that category, but if I wasn't optimistic, I don't think I could make it through this. And that's a big, important part of this community, is we're helping lift each other up. I've been seeing some things on Twitter that really are just, it's sad and disturbing and challenging because, you know, what I believe marks this community is their care for one another. And to see people destroying other people is frustrating. And it shows the lack of maturity, but also to recognize that, you know, there are no guarantees. Right? What's the point of having Lambo if you can't drive it? Right? What are the points of all of these things? And then, of course, you got the other side of the spectrum, which is like, we need to manifest our future. Yeah, we do. right? We do have to have plans and all those things. But I assure you, there's more at stake here and more at risk here than what you think, not just your bank account, but so many people that the Hexagon community and Pulse Chain community have attracted are regular folks. Regular folks. Hexited, hexited, hexited. We're calling your name. Someone call my name. We did call your name. Come on. Are you excited? You certainly are. Here, it's so hard to get noobs to realize crypto is boring when done correctly. Less is sometimes more. Absolutely, less is more. Now, that's really the hard part, right? Because why do people get in? People get in because they've seen the evidence that this is unique. It's different, right? You have proof of it. Why did Richard Hart get people to sacrifice $1.6 billion? You imagine that? That's you, right? It's Tin Top. He's like, hey, folks, give me $1.6 billion. Okay, right? That's a Herculean effort. And why? Because people saw something that happened in the past, and past performance is not indicative of future returns. We know that to be true. But things tend to rhyme. And we're like, all right, what horse are you going to bet on? These things are speculative at this moment. This is not mainstream, especially in DeFi. You know why? One of the big issues with DeFi is no real liquidity. And I mean by that, like substantial locked liquidity. So everything, you're taking risks. And I think a lot of people that have money or have built up real value don't want to risk it on something that could, they'll forego the flyer, this big win. Man, it goes up 10,000x. So who does it attract? It attracts us who are like, maybe some people who are naive, but also some people go, you know what? I look at Ballia Brand, right? Hey, Matt, when $100 turns into $1 million and 1,000 turns into 10 million. Okay, you have my attention. What are we talking about here, right? But of course, what are we seeing? Where are we? The expectation, I feel like so many don't have any perspective. Oh, new layer one, it should be up 100x on day one. No, I've never had that expectation, right? In fact, when I look back at the chart of Hex, man, things dumped and dumped and dumped and dumped and dumped. And the ones that are rewarded, is really where the brilliance of Hex is. It's the T-share. What does it do? Get you to lock up and forget about it and then bring value, right? That's the whole point of this thing. But when you're living and dying based on what the chart does, and that is your emotional state, oh man, that's painful. And of course, if you don't have any mooring, what I mean by that is if you don't have any connection to your actual values and what you believe and have any substance outside of the monetary value of your bank account, you're really, you've got a type of poverty that extends past finances. And that's what we like to talk about here on Crypto Heartbeat, is not to be impoverished in all areas, right? Because, this idea of what is wealth? Well, wealth, people, from a lot of different perspectives would say, well, wealth is health, right? That sounds corny. But if you don't have health, how can you enjoy your wealth? What about family relationships, interpersonal relationships? What about, peace in your home and in your heart? What does it mean to be able to sit still, right? We're constantly looking at these things. And I think they point back to something much greater than just money, because we're stuffing all kinds of things, right? We're stuffing all kinds of things into this hole in our heart in hopes that something will fit and will make sense and give us peace. Because what are we looking for? What is financial security, right? What is the expectation of these things? Well, it could change your financial situation, and you might find yourself being able to buy your time back. And what would you do if you had extra time? And there's a number of people that I've known in the community who made the big money, but then what ended up happening is they had a lot of free time on their hands. My dad always said, man, you know what? How do you keep a kid out of trouble? Keep them busy, right? Keep them busy. And so that's where this whole sudden wealth syndrome comes from. This idea, well, now I have all my time. I don't have to work. What am I going to do? I don't know. Let's do drugs, right? Let's do something crazy, right? Let's go drive our motorcycle at 100 miles an hour down the highway, whatever it may be. But what you don't realize is that part of the structure of the framework of this life is actually for your protection, right? Pain is actually for your protection. And some people don't have that perspective. They don't understand that. And that's what we try to do here, help you have the proper perspective. But there is in life the expectation reality gap. And the question is how you deal with that gap is actually a big part of how successful you are in life, right? You have expectations of what your spouse will be like. You have expectations about these things. But one of the things you'll know about me, and if you've watched Crypto Heartbeat very much, is I'm a man of faith. One of the things that's interesting is when you think at kind of the Judeo-Christian ethic, what you find is that, hold on a second, we're not here to please men. And that's a big question I've got for you. Are you here to please men? And what I mean by that is, in this macro sense, are you here kind of dancing for the man, hoping people see you, or socially signaling, if I only had this, when Lambo, if I had the Rolex, if I could socially signal this way or that way, then maybe somebody might consider me to have value. So many of us have grown up in situations in which we did not have parents who were the greatest fans of us, right? In many cases, there's many people who were abused, many people that were beat down. And that's really challenging because of what perspective it gives you. And then you're constantly searching for something that's going to provide you with peace, and we chase in so many different ways, right? And there are some things that work temporarily, but what are the things that have a lasting effect? And I think that that's the dichotomy of all of this stuff. And it's a paradox, which is like, well, I thought if I had all these things, I'd be happy. Well, take a look at people who win like at the top of their athletic, sports, right? I win the Lombardi trophy, or I win the, another ring. What do I do now? And people are like, oh, I just don't feel like I haven't arrived yet. And it seems like we have this expectation that when I achieve this thing or this level of finance or all this stuff, then I can like flip the switch and I can enjoy it. Well, the data suggests you won't be able to. And that's why you kind of got to get your house in order. And you got to understand this difference, because there is a real value of being hopeful in the future, especially in crypto, right? You got to be pretty optimistic, right, to play in this game. And then there are other people, just personality wise, that they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. They're scared. They live by fear. And so there's got to be some sort of happy medium between this. And what do we see now? All these people sacrificed. It took 2 years for Pulse and Pulse X to launch. And here we are. And people are sad that people are dumping? No, it's how things work. People overextended themselves. I for the last 2 years, was like, Pulse Chain's just around the corner. Oh, no, it wasn't just around the corner. It was, in fact, a year from May 15th. That expectation that I had and what I was trying to read the tea leaves and Richard Hart's comments was, oh, yeah, it's coming. Nope. It took an extra year. That's reality. But the question is, are you moving forward? That's the real question. And how are you moving forward? And what is the structure of your support system as it relates to that? Because this is the time, in a way, this is the most valuable time that creates the character in you, right? You do have a need to have cash, right? That I do not, I totally understand that. But, I think about rags to riches, right? I think about what his message is to people. Hey, if you're working 50 hours, work 60 hours. DCA and then DCA, and this is the time that people win. Oh no, everybody's selling their Pulse X. I thought that was supposed to be amazing with buyback and burn. Folks, you either believe in it or you don't. But here's the thing, betting the farm, it's kind of like, it's gambling, right? You go to Vegas and put it all on black and it turns up red and you've lost it all. What is this about? What is the role of speculative assets? Well, what's really cool about it is we see a future, right? We see governments and everybody like CBDCs, digitization of cash. Well, what happened when digitization came to music, right? What happened there? It's now coming to the money. Is it all there? Are you buying everything with crypto now? No, you're not. Obviously money's becoming more digital, but look what's coming up here in the next couple of weeks, right? The Fed now, right? This new ledger, right? A XML way to deal with an API rather than spreadsheets in the banking system. It's freaking 2023, folks, and they were still in spreadsheets at banks. Now they're going to actually be in an API system that's universal, and there's all kinds of issues with that. But if you think about what are the governments doing and where are we in the timeline of this and what perspective do you want to have or should you have? Folks, we're just getting started. Do we know which things are going to last and which things aren't? No. And you got all kinds of people telling you all kinds of stories. It's AI, it's Pepe, whatever it is for you, right? Shiny things in front of your face. I went through a cycle like this, and this was the .com era. This is when I first got into business. And I was getting out of college, and I got hired to go be a sales guy for a .com startup company. And I saw this wave come and go. And who lasted? Right? It wasn't the sock puppet, right? It wasn't toys.com, which was one of the memes of that time in that era. Everybody had a Super Bowl ad, right? Everybody trying to get a piece of it. Well, what actually survived? Amazon was selling books. Yeah. And they were like way, I mean, think about, just to give you a somewhat of a perspective, is back then we thought Jeff Bezos and Amazon was a joke, right? They were losing money hand over fist, and they were selling books. That was it. Now, did they figure some things out, some smart people, and think about actually being a distribution model? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So obviously you got to bet on a horse. But then think about, PayPal. I think what has made Elon Musk, right? Those are the days. And so we're in the new phase of a new technology, and we're at the very beginning. And the winners and losers haven't been decided yet. And it's going to wash out a lot of things. But you've got to basically think through, how do you perceive these things? What are your expectations of them? And so why am I so interested in, Richard Heart ecosystem? It's really because of DeFi, not because of Richard Heart. But Richard Heart is one of the best to articulate this fact that we can't compromise our principles. Okay? That's the most important thing. You don't compromise your principles. What are your principles? Well, the very reason that, Bitcoin was created. Censorship resistant, no counterparty risk, immutable, right? That's the key. So we understand these basics, but does that mean every single immutable contract is going to survive? No, it doesn't. So you have to kind of use your noggin and make educated guesses and bet on the horse to ride. But, my strategy is I don't bet more than I'm willing to lose. And that's not the case for so many people, because the prevailing wind in crypto is the crypto bros, right? Look at so-and-so. Are these outliers? Oh yeah, I got into Ethereum and held, or look at these whales. I'm going to be a whale and all this stuff. And, it's like my son saying, hey, Dad, do you think I can be a NBA player? And I go, you can do anything you set your mind to, son. But I'm going to tell you right now, unless you're playing basketball till 2 a.m. because you can't think of anything else, chances are there's somebody that's doing that. And so when I talk to Steve Staggs, it's cool to talk to somebody that went to the professional ranks of baseball. And he said that many people would come up to him and ask his opinion, right? Because they knew he played in the big leagues. And they asked him, hey, will you look at my son? Yeah, my son. He's like, watch him hit or watch him. He goes, I don't need to watch your son hit. And I do not need to watch your son catch. And I don't need to watch your son throw. And they're like, what do you mean? He's got the natural talent. He says, all I need to know is, what does your son do when he's not playing baseball? So I think about that for a second. What do you do when you're not playing crypto, right? What are you doing? And I think what's interesting is he said, for him, he would watch baseball on TV and then till all hours of the night replay that game out in the backyard when he was very young. He could not stop thinking about baseball. And some people are wired from that and some people are not. But I think everybody thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to be a whale in crypto. And then they're really surprised when, hold on a second, I've been lifting up these things that, I'm really not willing to either hold. And, I don't understand the very framework of how these people have gotten to where they go. I mean, look at the God whale. 6 transactions, 8 transactions, maybe 10 total in what, like 6 years? Is that you? Or are you somebody that's like pushing buttons? The reason Richard Heart is so genius with Hex is because he found a way to reward you to stop pushing buttons. That's the whole thing wrapped up. What is the psychology? Save you from yourself by giving you an incentive to shut up and sit down. And then what came out of that was a bunch of people that are trying to care for each other. But still, people are selling, of course, right? It's a part of the thing, right? No margin, no mission. But I think it's helpful to remind ourselves that, you know what? There are principles and there is something that is much greater in the scheme of things, and that is the benefits and the purposes of DeFi. So, what are my expectations of DeFi and what is the reality? Well, I see what's happening out in the world. And so, if I take a macro to micro view, I would say, all right, it looks like in this era of the digitization of money and the technology, the blockchain, and really the technology of cryptography, that there's an advantage to utilizing the real purposes of this. And what were the purposes of crypto? No counterparty risk and censorship resistance, because you've decentralized the ledger. It's completely transparent and no one can do anything but either write to it or read it. Right? You can't change things. So you can write transactions or you can read them. And the beauty of that is no centralized players control that ledger. And then there's a consensus mechanism that protects that. That's a powerful, powerful idea. And we've seen it play out. But what does it do? It actually threatens those who are in centralized power and control. And a guy like Richard Hart sees that, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of movement. And what's interesting is the more you have something exciting, the more the degenerates come out, right? Everybody that has these expectations of Lambo tomorrow. But I want to remind you, actually, the people that we admire in crypto are the people who have done very, very little. They're not trading. And so you have to kind of look out there and say, all right, what's the real wisdom? What's the framework? And maybe you pick a good horse to ride. I love the story that Brandon talks about. He's like, yeah, I bought Doge way back in the day and forgot I owned it. And he opened up a wallet and he saw he had Doge in it. He's like, I didn't even remember buying it. It's stuff like that where you go, you know what? Sometimes it's cool to kind of forget that you're sitting on what's the SAC price, man, and speculating all these things. It really actually, it exposes where your heart is. And it also exposes your, I think it's not really your intelligence level, but it's also your maturity as it relates to understanding the times. And so why do I do this? Because you have an expectation and then there's reality. And it's always different than you expect it to be, but it's true in every situation, right? You know, one of the things they talk about is the fruit of the spirit. You know, I don't know if you know that. What is the fruit of the spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. It all kinds of leads up to the last one, which is self-control. Isn't that interesting? The fruit of the spirit would ultimately lead up to self-control. What is that? What is self-control but endurance? So when people are yelling at you and doing all kinds of stuff, you can just weather the storm. That's the key. Those are the people that win, right? The people that win can weather the storm. Now, do you have to pick the right horse to ride? Yeah. You don't win by not playing. But also, you know, you got to keep your priorities straight, right? Do you sacrifice your family on the altar of cryptocurrency? I suppose you could. Many people have done it. But what are you doing? And what does it say about your values and say about what you care about? Not very good things. And I understand people get in desperate situations. And I've heard some amazing, like miraculous stories where like, wow, you got really lucky, my friend. But if you're just relying on that, probably not the best strategy, right? Right? Son, you can do anything you set your mind to. The question is, do you want it bad enough? Well, in this scenario, you can't force the market. You have to ride the wave. And what's the wave? The timing of the times. And so what are we living through? Well, we're in a situation where the US dollar has gotten to the point where it has been the world's reserve currency for roughly 97 years, something like that, maybe mid 90s number of years. Well, if you look back at all the reserve currencies in history since they began, they last about on average 100 years. So we're coming to the end of US dollar dominance and what is it? US dollar hegemony in the world. And what is the US with its big guns trying to do? Protect that. Right? So why do we have these regulations that are so tight in the United States? Because people are afraid that they're going to lose control of the purse strings. Because the purse strings combined with military might means control. And so all of these things are symptoms of the actual problem, but we're in a cycle. And so understanding that money is becoming digitized, and there are people on both sides that are like, hey, we got to retain and maintain our power. How do we do that? We got to control the money. But this cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box is open. DeFi exists, and people like Richard Hart are out there. And so you say, well, what is my time horizon? I mean, I'd love to get rich faster than slower, but what does get rich really mean? And so as I think about how all of this stuff is structured, you know what I've recognized? It's actually better to give than receive. Isn't that weird? You're like, well, I'd really like to receive first before I give. Might help me give more. But this idea that, hold on a second, how you give is actually more of an indication of where your heart is, right? I could take your bank account, look at your transactions, and understand exactly how you feel about things. It reveals who you are, how you do, and what you do in transactions. You'd be naked financially in front of people. But that's why it's really important to get the proper perspective. We're doing a conference in Houston coming up on the 24th of June called Gen Con. This is a generosity conference where we're going to go deep into these things. And it's going to challenge some folks, right? Some of the people are going to be like squirming, but others are going to be absolutely invigorated. There are 50 tickets. I don't know how many we sold as of today. But the point is, it's a limited group of people. It's actually hosted by a wonderful Hexagon Texican brother of ours, Danny the singer. You can go to Gen Con 2023. That is an all-day event on June 24th. And then we have a meetup, which is a Hexagon, Pulsagon, Texican, everything. Anyone who is in the sound of our voices can come. And that's at a restaurant in that same area in Southeast Houston. And it's on that website. So if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the information about the meetup. Love to see everyone there. I'm hoping we'll get some amazing people to come in. And then, if you want to come to the all-day event, which is on the 24th, this is the nature of the conversation, is really to understand, hold on a second. Okay, what does it look like to actually contribute? Because here's the thing. Giving isn't just letting go of what you have, right? Giving is not what you think it is, because the way in which you use your resources can actually, create a return for you, right? But you can also invest in a way that actually improve lives and situations for people. One of the things I've learned over the years is that, I served a lot of Christian ministries in fundraising. And there's always this assumption, people are doing these mission trips. You've heard this, right? The church sending people out, go across the world. And they're like, we're going to go change the world. We're going to go on a mission trip. You know what? In reality, they show up at these remote places where people are in abject poverty. And then they see the kids and they don't have iPads and they're not stuck to their phones. They barely have shoes to put on their feet. And they're happier than you are. And that's part of this tale. Is that people go out to these places thinking they're going to be helped, and they're actually changed from the inside because of it. And so what you understand about life is that, hold on, these things are counterintuitive. The things I've been chasing aren't the things that are going to bring me value. And so I even see this in Richard Hart, right? He wants the glory. Well, what is that glory? Well, you want to be successful and you want the scorecard to show that you've won. But at the end of the day, what's the legacy? And you can't add a day to your life. So actually, what will be the test of our effectiveness? What will be the evidence of Richard Hart's glory? Lives changed. Well, how did those lives get changed? Did Richard Hart give you money? Nope. Richard Hart actually gave you a tool that you leveraged. It's actually by giving that Richard Hart will receive the glory, because it will be culminating in the group of people in the community that's lives have changed. So actually, strangely, giving is better than receiving, right? You enable people to have an alternative way to kind of get out from under their current circumstances. And I've seen that happen. That's what I think ties together this whole community, is people are like, wow, this is a unique time in human history, and we can win together if we work together. But what do we see right now? New layer one, Pulse Chain just launched. Woohoo, great, everybody's happy. Or are they? No, still complaining about everything. Oh, it's not the number I wanted. It's not doing the thing I wanted. It's not my expectations. And I put LP up and I didn't earn my rewards, or whatever it is, right? Complain. But do you have the long-term vision? And here's the thing. There's going to be a point in which something seriously happens in the world, and they're going to say, well, we basically shut down your businesses. I don't know what that is. Is it AI? Is it the next pandemic? Whatever it is. And they're going to say, well, if you want your stimulus money this time, you're going to have the government wallet. And that comes with a social credit score and a digital ID. And then you'll be looking back in this like, oh my goodness. So hold on a second. Why was I so, critical of this Richard Heart ecosystem? Why didn't I actually see the big picture? Right? He even posted something. He's like, man, you're either a bad teacher or your people are dum-dums when people don't get it. But you got to understand what times we live in and having some perspective that, hey, one, you got to pick a horse to ride, but two, are you going to invest in things that are going to sell out to centralized players and put you in more of a tough situation? Right? And the analogies that Richard gives are things like, hey, it used to be a federal offense if you read somebody's mail, right? You went into their mailbox and took their mail and read it. But then email came out and the ISPs and everybody reads your mail and actually sell your data based on what your email says and your interactions. And they make money on you, and it's not illegal at all for them to read your mail. So as things became digital, we gave up privacy. The same thing is happening with money. So the question is this. I look at this, who is out there in the crypto world who is advocating for freedom and sovereignty? Is there going to be a place in which we can transact where we don't have to have the digital ID and we don't have to have the CBDC? The only place I can see is the Richard Heart ecosystem. So do I care about Pulse X being down? Nope, I don't. Why? Because I didn't overextend myself. Well, I'm not going to win as big as you did because you like sold your house and put it all there. Fine. I don't really care. What I care about is having peace in my heart and my home. And that's because I'm moored to a foundation of real value. Right? If mama's not happy, nobody's happy. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have the right perspective. You got to have the right, priorities. But this could be an amazing situation, right? Enabling people to get out of their current circumstances. I look at people and I hope and I pray for people in the Philippines that Ophir Crypto could be just the tool that they've been looking for. But I can't force someone to be in community. I can't force someone to talk about something that they believe in. But here's the thing. This is all going to change at some point in time. Money is going to be fully digital. There's just no ifs, ands, buts about it, right? Just like they're trying to do with electric cars. Will somebody still have a 57 Chevy that runs on leaded gasoline? Yes. Will there be some people that might have some stash of cash? Yeah, but there will be very limited places in which you can use it. Will people go to bartering? Yeah, there's going to be all kinds of fringe things. But the majority of people that are doing business in the world are going to do it digitally without cash. And it's all going to be trackable. It's traceable in digital IDs and social credit scores. They want to mimic what's happening in China. Globalists, authoritarians. And so when I look at this, I'm like, I don't think, the price of this token, like 20 days in. No, I look at this and I say, this is a potential hope for an independent, separate financial system in which we can transact without having to give up our privacy, our freedoms, all those kind of things. But the question is, you might say, well, all crypto is that way. No, it's not. Because here's the thing. People like Vitalik and all that and the timing of everything, they had to do deals with the devil, right? They had to do deals, OFAC compliance, right? They had to fall in line. And that's how governments maintain control, right? Regulatory. One of the things I like about Richard Heart is he isn't going to bow down to any regulatory, anyone, no jurisdiction. And what I really like about this is the same thing we're doing in Texas. We're saying these things are self-evident that all men are created equal, right? And we actually form this government. What is this government? These are the rules that we think are going to lead to our life, liberty, happiness. They're of our construction, we the people. But they've forgotten that they work for us. And that's not good. And so what do we say? We say we need to reboot the system and we need to get it back into popular control. We demand this because we are the ones that actually created it in the first place. So many people think that they get their rights from the state. You do not get your rights from the state. The state does not give you rights. Your rights come from a creator, right? Unalienable rights are those that are self-evident. They're obvious. right? These are things that you inherently have, not because of the government giving you or taking them away. It's because they're inherent to who you are, how you were created, right? A creator created you and gave you these rights. And we recognize them as self-evident. And so we build structures around them that create a better scenario for our life, liberty, happiness. It's the foundation of the civilized society is based on this idea. Hey, don't kill people. Okay. Don't steal stuff from people. Okay. Don't lie to people, right? Don't covet your neighbor's wife, right? All those things, right? There's some basic principles that if we kind of abide by these things, hey, we're going to drive on the right-hand side of the road. Oh, no, we're going to drive on the left-hand side. Well, let's decide, because if we don't decide, we might have some problems. So we agree to these terms, speed limits and trash collection and all that stuff. Good. Civilized society. But here's what's happening. We're telling people that men are women and women are men. We're breaking the very fabric of this, the transhumanist movement, right? All of these things with we're picking it apart. We're saying the family doesn't matter, right? And what is it doing? It's creating more reliance on the state. So what do you think these statists and these authoritarians are going to do? They're going to take every opportunity they can to maintain their power. And how do they maintain their power? Through money and weapons. Well, what if we defunded the war machine? What would that look like? Well, we'd have to have some money to defund it, meaning we'd have to take some money from the current system. Well, how do we do that? Well, I'll just drive a truck and I just work hourly or whatever, or I got a salary or I'm an attorney or whatever. And some guy came along and said, hey, there's this thing called Texan, or there's this thing called Hex, or there's this thing called PulseX, or whatever it is. And they said, can I convince you to take a portion of your labor, your personal private property, which we create a proxy of, right? You put cash into Coinbase, it becomes Ethereum, you bridge it over, and you buy Pulse. It's just you. You just put you, right? All it is a representation of you and your time and your effort and the value that you create on some kind of scale based on your education and your chutzpah. And what ends up happening? We all do that kind of together, and some things win and some things lose. Question is, it's about the narrative and it's about the community. More buyers and sellers, the price goes up. Now, liquidity is important in all of that. And I think in the future, if we're going to have DeFi have an opportunity to see its day in the sun, it's going to have thick liquidity. Right now, it's got thin liquidity and the price moves a lot. It's super volatile, and people that have made a bunch of money don't want to risk it on, volatile assets. So more of this, in my opinion, is about the times that we live in versus what the chart is doing today. And so as I look on Twitter, I actually get depressed. I get depressed. The people that I thought were contributors to the community, some little thing changes and they lose their beep. They just lose it. And it's like, well, man, you built all this stuff up and now here you are. And of course, everybody wants to pile on and like rub people's nose and stuff. I told you so, or whatever. Remind me of this in 12 months or whatever. Fine. That's entertainment for people because they get a little dopamine hit when they like draw somebody off sides. Do not participate in that stuff. I mean, I guess if you want to get engagement, get more followers or something. But it also says something about you, right? That you participate in those type of things. And my suggestion would be in this community that we not participate in those things, right? We should spend our time telling people about the future of money and that this hope isn't just in one token. Now, there are options that you've got, but DeFi is really different, a wholesale difference in the financial system. And if you don't understand decentralized finance, a lot of people that come to crypto, they're like, well, and we deal with this all the time with the Texas nationalist movement, the people over in the Philippines. Well, I thought crypto was FTX. Nope, it's not FTX. I thought it was Celsius. I thought it was this decentralized exchange. I thought it was Coinbase. No, it's not. It's a really, really powerful idea when it's in its decentralized form, but it could easily be compromised, right? How many people have, lied to you? But I think one of the big keys that I see long-term is if we can't find liquidity and lock it for DeFi, we don't have a future. It's relegated to the periphery. So those are kind of things I'm thinking about and we're working on is how do we help really fortify DeFi? And I think a way that which you can do it, because you're already kind of agreed that the Richard Heart ecosystem makes some sense, It isn't about Richard Hart, although he's the innovator and he's the one that's leading the charge. But without these structures, without a layer one like Pulse Chain, without non-OFAC compliance, with really truly believing in censorship resistance, the ability to have privacy, be able to have a stable coin that you can function in, and not be tracked and traced, and not have to have a government wallet or ID or social credit score in order to do transactions. That's worth investing in the long term for me. Now, am I going to win as big as you because you sold the farm to do it? No. But I'm going to pay attention to which way the wind's blowing, and I'm going to set my sail to that. I'm going to pay attention. I'm not going to be a maximalist on anything. And so what have we committed ourselves to? Well, let's onboard as many people as we can. Well, how do you do that? Let's find people that are already in community and let's tokenize those communities. Let's bring them into the Pulse Chain. And it's working. Okay. Does it happen overnight? No, it doesn't happen overnight. So there's an expectation that you have, and then there's reality. And when things don't meet, how do you deal with it? Right? It's a trap. They call it the expectation reality trap. And how you react to things, right? Do you have self-control? I think it's the hardest thing. My dad always said, he's like, man, if you want to get ahead in this life, show up 10 minutes early and don't be drunk. That's how my dad saw the world. Because most of the people he couldn't show up on time and generally were drunk. I'm like, wow, that's so interesting to even say that nowadays. But folks, you get credit for showing up. You get credit for holding. So what should you be doing? I'm going to make your own decisions. What am I doing? Sitting tight and chopping wood. Bring value wherever you go. Breathe life into people. Because you know what? I've recognized so many people in this world have way more haters than lovers. And what could you do? Well, you could breathe life into people. How do you do that? When you open your mouth in the morning, is something positive or negative coming out? Right? Do you edify people? Do you lift them up? Do you find ways in which you can encourage them? Do you see the best in people? Or are you critical? Are you always judging things? Are you always comparing things? It's a hard way to live. It's a hard way to live. And some people are wired that way, right? They're critics for a reason. But I would say what's unique about this community is it's a community of creators. And that's what really defines who we are in a unique way. Because my dog isn't building crypto. My dog is not a Solidity coder. So what separates us from is this creative ability where we can imagine something in our mind that we have some expectation or vision for. And guess what? Did it turn out exactly the way you thought it would be? No, it's probably going to be better, but it takes time. And so having patience and self-control is really the key to that. So why are we doing Gen Con 2023? Because we're going to talk about these issues, and we're going to help you connect with other people that are going to help keep you going when you have a hard time going. And that's what I see as the beauty of this. Why did David Lee travel 7.5 hours to be at my dad's funeral? Because he understood this. Hey, we're just waiting around. We might as well care for each other. But a lot of this stuff is actually an outpouring of your own personal values and what you care about. And so I want to be around people who want to give, not so that I can take, but because I know that the value and joy in making a difference in people's lives, in giving them opportunities to change their circumstances, is a beautiful thing. Because what is it really? When you stare at your dad in the casket, he wasn't carrying his bank account with him, and neither will you. So what's the expectation? I'm going to live to 120. Oh, really? Okay. My son's going to be a, NBA player. Do you really want that? Okay. What do you want? And I think that's a big part of it. You have to decide. What do you want? What do you want? Do you want to support a vertically aligned ecosystem that might be your way out of doing transactions without being tracked? Yeah, I do. That's where I'm at. So to me, Pulse and PulseX price charts are irrelevant because I didn't sacrifice money so I could have it today. And I invested in an idea that I think could be maybe the only option moving forward. So what do? Accumulate, and hope things go my way. But if not, I'm going to keep working. I'm I'm going to keep creating value and bringing value and breathing life into people and encouraging them. Right? So if there's a direct thing from old man Crypto Heartbeat is stop putting a gun to the head of people in the same foxhole. We're on the same team. And in reality, what we're fighting for, if we actually work together, is a future that could be life-giving to so many people. Because right now, there's not a stark contrast. People don't see the difference between CeFi and DeFi. People don't see the difference between government control and censorship resistance. But they will. One day they will see it, and it will be a stark contrast. And the question is, have you sold yourself out? Did you prepare ahead of time? Or did you understand what was actually happening and say, you know what? I'm going to hedge my bet here. And I think also when you invest in the things that reflect your values, you're much more willing to share those things. And what is this? This is a communication network. If you don't share it with people, it doesn't grow. But the story isn't about just number go up. And it's not about the tech, but it's a combination of all these things. And so where do I think people receive most value? It's going to a meetup, meeting people in real life. And then what ends up happening, right? A wild SJ has some guy who knows how to paint a bus, or, hey, I know how to fix your air conditioner, or, hey, I can help you this way. Or somebody's like, well, when you're on the road, I want to make sure that you're safe. And people give up their time. I was on What the Hex, episode 20. And that was with Papa B. And Papa B's there. And I'm like, dude, this guy gives and gives and gives and deals with the most horrendous situations of people losing their crypto. And he's given advice, and he like literally has probably been through the same conversation 1,000 times. I don't know what happened. I lost all my crypto. And he's picking up the pieces of this. Who wants to deal with that? That's the last thing on earth I want to deal with. And he's like, yeah, that's what I'm here to help. What? You know how much value that is to people who are freaking out? And Papa B's like, yeah, that's what I do. I'm so thankful that there are people in this community that are willing to do that. What is your value that you bring? What do you bring to the table? And are the words that are coming out of your mouth self-controlled? Or are you just shooting people in the head? And you don't care about who gets left in the ditch. I assure you, the more people that we can strap on our back and drag through the mud and help them along this way, it's not about crypto strategy. It's more about the life that gets in the way. I was thinking about Silvertooth. I don't know if you follow Silvertooth, but a guy that's done incredible TA over the years. He and Crypto Bobcat, Strong Like Bull, they used to stream a lot together. And Silvertooth put some stuff up, and he's like, man, I got to get out of this stuff. And he was really, really down and hard on himself. And it really touched me because I'm like, so many people are suffering in silence like this, right? And it's like, man, how do we come alongside each other and say, hey, sometimes you fall down in the mud and we just got to help drag you out of this stuff, right? We leave no man behind. That should be, in my opinion, and of course, this is my optimistic Pollyanna self, is maybe we should care for one another. Oh yeah, that's the secret to winning in DeFi. Being of like minds, unity in community. What does it do? Gets more people in, onboards more people because there's more value than just the number go up. And then, hey, we might find ourselves at the halvening. We might see ourselves when the money printer gets turned on. And we might see when everything transitions and all this institutional money comes into DeFi. And all these great people who have built so many wonderful things on the Pulse chain, minus the stupid meme coins. And you go, wow, there's infrastructure and there's all this stuff. And we've got a visionary leader and all these things. And you kind of go, hold on a second. Wow, this is a breath of fresh air. It is life-giving to people. They're like, wow, there's more here than meets the eye. Why do you think Christianity spread across the world, besides the fact that I think it has supernatural power? It's because if you look at the early church in Acts 2:42, it says they committed themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And, there were people, they were added to their numbers daily. Right? This idea that people were attracted by this. Why do you think they were attracted? They actually sold things and gave things to people as they had needs. They cared for people's needs. They broke bread and ate together. They probably talked a little bit while they're at it. They got some good teaching of some good wisdom and had friendship and fit in and valued each other. You know what? I see that in this community. What? You mean like the local church? Yeah. Yeah, actually, probably better than the local church of real community of people being honest. Because a lot of people in the church are faking it. And people like, you know, Silvertooth are like, hey, man, it's hard. And I'll share with you. And people have done that, right? David Lee shared that with what he was dealing with his wife's health. And then, we've seen this in so many different ways. John May is another example. Like, man, it's hard. Yep, it is. And you know what? At some point in time, you're going to need some help too. So realize whatever is coming out of your mouth, it has the ability to praise or to curse. And it's powerful stuff. You can destroy people. Is that enjoyable to you? Well, it says more about you than it does the person that you're destroying. So let's have some self-control, and let's not shoot each other in the head in the foxhole. And let's care for one another and serve one another and realize what's at stake. We could be contributing to, in our own little ways, to the preservation of private transactions that don't require the heavy hand of government on us. And this literally could be the alternative financial system and could potentially change the very nature of value in the world. Because what happens when somebody doesn't have any money and now they have money? Oh, how do you eradicate poverty? So many people have talked about direct aid, right? You want to wash all this money through these government systems that have all these bureaucrats and all this overhead. Well, what if you just handed them the money? What would they do with it, right? I'm not advocating for direct aid, but what I'm saying is crypto is kind of like that, right? Contribute to this, you buy into it, you own it, it's got your fingerprints on it, and people support what they help to create. Fantastic. Now we're in a community together, and let's go win together. And what happens when it's down and the price is down and my expectations weren't met? Hey, it's going to be okay. There's more to this story than what you think. Let's keep our eye on the ball. Let's have self-control. Let's protect our fellow, even if we don't care for them too much. But realizing that those that stick together win. And everything in this world is trying to divide us. It's trying to get a foothold, and it's trying to separate us from each other. It happens in marriages. It happens in families. It happens in so many cases. Do not let the devil get a foothold. Love covers a multitude of sins. Let's care for one another. That's the key to this whole thing. And why does it work? Because Richard Hart, as a leader in all of this stuff, actually cares about you. He doesn't really like the dum-dums, but you're not the dum-dums. He actually advocates. He doesn't want you to get wrecked. He warns you about all these things. And no one appreciates it, right? Just ask him. But there will be a reward. And so the coolest thing about this is we get to visit with each other, and we get to help each other and bear each other's burdens. And then when you have a baby, we can go, yay, another ginger add to the list, right? Celebrate and bear each other's burdens. So that's the key to this whole thing. So hopefully today, the expectation and reality gap is really how you deal with it and how you see it. Are you trying to rub people's nose in things? Are you trying to win? Are you trying to do one-upsmanship? Are you trying to criticize? Are you trying to put people in their place? Are you trying to, pull people off center? Are you trying to get engagement? You don't have to pay attention to people very long and what the words that they use and how they interact to understand where their heart is. I want to be aligned with people who have their heart in the right place. And it's not hard to discern that. But the question is, are you chasing things in hopes that you get that dopamine hit? And that's what you're living from. You're living off a dopamine hit to dopamine hit. And you can get that by destroying people. And it's happening all over the place. Just understand that people are going to see things differently. The only person you can control is you. Why don't you get busy at doing that and realize these things will work themselves out. But we might actually get to be a part of something really special in this world. And you go, yeah, I'm going to tell the grandkids, back when DeFi came out, it didn't have any liquidity. And we were a part of this whole plan. Pretty cool. Thanks for joining the Pulse today. Let's get back into the chat, and then we'll say farewell to you. I appreciate you coming here and saying hello. Did someone call my name? Oh, yes, we did. Chase this. Is it pumping now? What should I sell? Get rid of that mentality. Buy, stake, relax. Amen to that. Viber Finance CEO knows what he's talking about. Hexforce One. Hello, Crypto Heartbeat. Now is the time to hold on tight, ride the waves, and come out the other side. You'll be glad you did. Amen. Texas Life, absolutely. What's going on? These are the days of accumulation. This is when those folks are made, right? This is where the real fortunes are made, because most people can't be patient. Hey, Hex Glenn, what's going on? Texas Life is just sitting in a lazy boy with a Texan and others stored away, mostly trusting in God for his plan and how I prosper. I'm good, however, he decides for me. Right. And you have to deal with that, right? That's just the nature of life, right? You could get a phone call and something really bad could have happened to somebody you love. Or somebody calls you and they celebrate with you, right? This life is more than just money. I've had more or less in times in life when my relationship is close with God and I feel the best. Chasing money is miserable. Yeah, well, you can't serve two masters, right? You know that. No amount of crypto is as satisfying as planting our garden and growing organic food for the kids. How cool is that, right? Knowing that you're feeding the kids something that doesn't have a bunch of chemicals in it. That's how you provide. I think that's a part of giving, right? You're giving something to kids. You're helping them prosper themselves. I think the more we consider others in addition to ourselves, the better off we are. Hope everyone's doing well. Hi, Samantha. Growing on your own land is a beautiful thing. Absolutely. There's nothing like that, right? Private property, folks, got to defend that. Hit the like button if you forgot. Come on, I started my crypto. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. Isn't that great? And the Never Come Home classic. Francis Paul, what's going on? So important to support the authentic people like Brandon from Rags to Riches. There will be our crypto and there will be their crypto CBDCs. Right. There's going to be two. It's going to be, I mean, they're trying to put this cat back in the bag and they're not going to be able to do it. Vibra, that's a lot of percentages. What's up, Freddie Quotes? Good to see you. You all seem like awesome people. I tell you, I've been no angel in my life, but I've always loved Jesus and strive daily to do better. That's why I follow Matt, and his channel promotes positivity. Hey, what else can you do, right? When you've seen hard times, like what good is it to like beat people down and create fear? But I will say this, Texas Life, there's some awesome people in here. And I think the thing that binds us together is we know what hard times look like. And we're not so proud that we're like, yeah, I can deal with it. No, it's hard. Sometimes you need help. Mr. Rafferty, what's going on? Thanks for all your help, by the way. I see you. Samantha's Freedom Maxi. There you go. Wow. Freddie Quotes. So much truth to that. Thanks, man, for being here. I grew up in the church, so that's a daily thing to take up your cross. Yeah. And if you think about it, for those of you who kind of understand the very nature of the gospel, is you go, hold on a second. Freedom isn't this idea of just doing whatever you want. It's actually you're conforming or being slave to something that you know is the truth or the creator of all things. And I think when you align yourself with that, money and things drop into their proper place. But that's something that, you gotta journey on your own. That's why I sit with Steve Staggs on Friday and we take 2 hours to talk about these things. Howdy, y'all. Late boy, I have to watch replay. Thanks so much. Danny the Singer, excited to see everyone at the meetup. If you want to know more about the meetup that's happening on June 23rd in South Houston, Danny's the host with the most. And we got like the karaoke machine coming, and Danny the Singer is going to bring some wonderful song stylings to the karaoke, but also the Right Hand Foundation, which is a sponsor of this whole shoot match. It's so great, and he's so generous and so helpful. And I would love to see you there. I know Danny would. $25 for tickets to come to the meetup because there's a full meal there, and I think non-alcoholic drinks are provided. So it's not like, hey, just show up at a bar. No, this is organized. We're hoping to get at least 70 people there, and so come on out. Like all the good, Houston, maybe South Texas, plus Austin folks. Come on down. It would be great to see you. This is like everyone high-fiving that we're winning the lottery in slow motion. Magnus, what's going on? Crypto Heartbeat, your passion generally warms my heart. Thank you for your words. Well, I'm just trying to be authentic. And also, I feel like I've kind of taken the responsibility for being the voice of reason. Because that's kind of what I do all the time, everywhere I go. We should all ask for forgiveness daily when we make mistakes, even driving too fast or getting mad. It's all sin. So glad we have forgiven God, and that's the thing too, is, yeah, it's a good point. What is this idea of keeping short accounts? And I think a marriage is a really good example of this, because when you're in relationship and living together and you're married and you've got kids and responsibilities and all that, the assumption that people have told you that it's all this, it's this, love is this feeling that if you don't have it, you need to get out of this situation. What you realize is, though, no, 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 no. It's not that. It's actually, this verb, right, of love. What is it? A commitment that you make regardless of how difficult things are. That's why it's called a covenant. Slam. Christianity spread around the world because Christians got on lots of boats, went to every known place on earth, and mainly forced it on others. I totally disagree. If it didn't have power, and I can point to so many different examples of what that power is, because if you actually read across time, people's experience with the gospel. Start with Paul on the road to Damascus, and then kind of work your way forward. Augustine, genuine people's conversion, and you recognize this isn't a marketing campaign, right? It's kind of like this idea of, why do good things spread? Because there's something to them that is beyond your ability to articulate. And that's really the reason, because there's power there. And truth. And, the things that you think, back in the day of Jesus, actually, they would just kill whatever the leader of the day was. They just kill the guy, and all of his people would just go be scattered, and it wouldn't catch on. And that was kind of the strategy. But no, this one didn't do it that way. That didn't happen. Glad I found Crypto Heartbeat in the crypto space. Texas Life, good to see you. Ed Carroll, your approach is refreshing. Frustrating to see guys like Fu Refinance spreading FUD on clicks to very community claims to support. And people you got to also recognize, and I don't know the situation specifically with this person, but everybody is going to talk out of their own context, and you never know what people are dealing with, right? When you're hurting at home or difficulties and you're dealing with depression, anxiety, there's a lot of people with mental illness that have Twitter accounts. I'm not suggesting that this is the case, but you just never know what people are dealing with. And so when I see this stuff, we all get sideways, and we got to leave room for people to go a little crazy once in a while. That's part of patience, and that's part of self-control. Bearing with each other. What is your thought on Zen on Pulse Chain? I do not think about Zen. I do not. I don't spend much time on Zen. Partly because I've already assessed that, and I assess based on the character of people and their actions. This cycle, same but different. Yeah, that's right. It rhymes. Zen is the biggest scam ever made. Whoever trusts that snake jack is lacking critical decision making. Okay. All right, let's get into it. Actually, Zen is a pulse printer. I'm in Zen and paid 1 million pulse, and a few days later, I was able to sell it for 5 million. So actually, Zen is profitable, and it may have been for you. There's a lot of different things. If you got into Pepe at the right time, it was profitable too, or Bob, or Malady, or Ben, or whatever. Chasing, all kinds of things, right? There's always a story of somebody won. The stories of everyone losing never get told because no one wants to admit it. Mr. Tima, set it and forget it, and now I can enjoy my favorite pastime, killing fire ants. Dude, I agree with you, man. If you have ever stepped in a fire ant mound in Texas, man, those things well up. Oh my goodness, it's scary. Yeah, so you got to bait them. Boy, that works though. That bait that they make, it works like a charm. You know what I always wanted to do? Have you ever seen anybody take, they'll take like a little foundry and they'll melt aluminum and they'll pour it into these ant holes and they'll go all the way down and create this really cool sculpture, and then they'll dig it out and spray it out and it becomes like this art piece. That's how I feel about fire ants. Hexamillion. Zen is actually a cool project. Every mint has been profitable. If you pay 100,000 for a mint, you can sell it sometimes 4x. So that's why hexagons are minting Zen like crazy. Yeah, and that's the thing, I don't really have, because of my self-control, I really don't have anything to say about Zen. Got to pick a horse to ride, and if that's the horse you ride it, right? But see, that's the thing that's cool, folks. That's why they make chocolate and vanilla, as my dad always said, right? Different strokes for different folks. Question is, what I bank on and what I think is the case is the people that really have money are more reasonable than degenerate. Let me say that again. The reason I do this is because I think there are more people that understand what I'm saying than get distracted by shiny object syndrome or want to attach themselves to some scheme or the flavor of the month. I think there's actually more reasonable people, and what we need is more reasonable people in crypto. We need more people to understand that, hold on, this isn't just something for a bunch of kids. This is actually a viable thing that's actually addressing something really, really important in the world. So that's why I don't get into these schemes or, hey, if you do this and hop on one foot and burn this for this thing, you get the 12th token in a series of 15, and then you mint this NFT, and then you transfer it over here, and then you buy this derivative, and then on Sundays it produces 1,000x. Like, the people that have money don't have the time for that BS. The people that do have the time, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. Mixed Crypto Arts. Hey, Matt, just catching the tail end. Cheers of the stream, mate. Great to hear your input and insight. Hey, thanks for being here. Rich Wealth, Zen is poo. Rich Gas, Fee, Vampire Coin. Never call Zen by its name. Always refer to is the forever down token. Okay, I'll remember that. I like Zen because I get more pulse. So it's a good thing, and that's the thing, and some people are actually smarter than Crypto Heartbeat. You actually understand all of these things and intricacies. I think the more complex things get, and the more I have to use a slide rule and, be an absolute freaking genius to understand, the less long-term adoption there is, right? People just want to understand. That's why Hex worked. It's called product market fit. What is product market fit? You create all these complicated ways, you're going to engage some people, right? The smart people or the people that got a lot of time in their hands and understand what you're doing and follow you. And you can do that, right? But I think the people out there that are out in the world, we had this call with Gary Cardone. And Gary Cardone, Grant Cardone, it's his twin brother. And he was just like, yeah, great, guys. I'm glad you like Hex, but I'm a Bitcoin guy. And it's hard to convince somebody who's made a lot of money in the traditional financial system to get into something that's super speculative. I don't blame them for that, right? Try to onboard as many people as you can and tell them about DeFi. But I almost feel like the only way to get to something like Gary Cardone is to say to him, listen, do you understand what the governments are doing? And we got to stand up against that. These things represent that. And he would say, well, I believe Bitcoin does that too. You go, okay, well, we'll agree to disagree. Mr. Rafferty says, no, thanks to Zen. When the founder personally attacks my people, I draw the line and say, I had an experience like that. And that's the thing to me is that, right? You open your mouth and you remove all doubt, right? I mean, a tree is known by its fruit. What fruit is your tree creating? Death and destruction, life, liberty, sovereignty, whatever it is. That's it. It's real simple. It's real simple. It's funny that this has all become about Zen. Just goes to show you. That's good. Cult-like culture, right? Powerful. Might have a shot. But you know what? There's a lot of horses to ride. So pick one, folks. But do not forget, there's a big gap between expectation and reality. It's really a trap that you could fall into. And when you fall into it, you tend to want to destroy other people. So I just want to encourage you, stay the course, realize really what's big and what's at stake here. Be thankful for the fact that there's somebody out there that actually understands that freedom, sovereignty, speech, movement, privacy are all important, and pay attention to what's happening in the world because it's going to get worse before it gets better. And don't just live and die based on Twitter or the charts. Hang on. And why don't you maybe think about how you could bless somebody, right? It may be just a good word. Hey, I was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. Think about ways in which you can care for other people, right? I swear your quality of life will improve if you stop just focusing on yourself. Take care of yourself. Thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. Do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody.